Hi, welcome to another episode of Oh So Curious. And on today's show, we've got lots to get through. Of course, the big news of the day yesterday was that Paramount CEO Bob Bakish was stepping away and has stepped away from his role with the company, one of the biggest movie studios, one of the oldest movie studios in the world. And, now it doesn't really have a CEO. They have an office of the CEO. So we'll get into that and what that entails. And of course, maybe the reason for why Bob Bakish stepped away. We're also gonna get into some of the other news of the day, like there's a new Scooby Doo live action show coming up, or a movie or show. We'll see. We'll talk about that on over at Netflix. My hope is that Freddie Prinze Jr. is back. Like that. I personally liked his Fred. No, so we'll see. And then of course we've got challengers out. We're going to be reviewing that. Zendaya given a phenomenal performance. Angelina went to see the movie. We'll talk about it. And we have got lots more beyond that. DCU daily stuff. Green Lantern seems to be a muse for James Gunn over the last few days, and he's set off a lot of speculation. So we'll try to sort that out. John is back with us today to do that as well. And then we'll look ahead to the Fall Guy. So to do all of that and so much more, let's get the show started. Hey, all right. So, welcome back to the show. That was a quick intro. So, Angelina, John, how are you guys doing today? John, I'll start with you since you were not here with us last week. How have you been feeling? We know that you kind of went down with something, but I don't know,
Yeah.
is it all the way
I
back?
apologize if I sound like I've been smoking a pack a day for the past 40 years, but I have not. I've just had a really bad cold, and now I'm kind of starting to get over it. And hopefully, I can't talk too much, but I can talk enough. So that's enough for me to come back and be like, hey, I can do this now. So hopefully, that's good enough. But yeah.
Nice. Well, we're glad that you're back. I mean, and we missed you. Like, we were talking about
Okay,
Green
don't
Lantern
fucking
last
lie.
week.
You don't have to lie to me. Get the fuck out of
Okay.
here. All right.
Well, on that note, Angelina, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's a coffee kind of day. We're put yourself first, damn it. This mug was given to me by a friend. Yeah, we're good. We're living our lives. I got to see a great movie this past week. Crazy things still happening in the entertainment stratosphere, but at least we're moving, right? At least things are happening.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot going on, and I mean, there's news out today. We'll get into that as well. But the biggest news so far this week, I mean, it's only a Tuesday, so like there's a lot more week to come, and we'll see like where the dominoes fall. But as we always do, we start off with the news, and the biggest news of the week so far is that the Paramount CEO Bob Bakish, stepped down yesterday from his role, and it was fairly abrupt exit. Like it kind of came out of nowhere, at least from people on the outside looking in. But it does kind of signal, like maybe where things are headed for Paramount as a company, because we have known for a while that Paramount has been looking to sell itself in some way or fashion, whether it's altogether as the large conglomeration that it is, or they get sold and then they get pieced up, and they divest a few divisions, like whether the movie studio goes its own way and the TV assets go the other direction, or whatever the case might be. There's a lot of different, iconic brands that are part of the Paramount portfolio, the Paramount Global. So basically, to give a little bit of background as to what has been going on in the last few months, I mean, you might have come across a story that David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, had met with Bob Bakish, and they were sort of discussing the idea of Warner Brothers Discovery potentially acquiring Paramount down the road, in the near future, let's say. And Bob Bakish was sort of like, kind of trying to find some kind of acquisition partner in that sense, and Warner Brothers would have been one of those. Now, what has happened? That was the only perspective on the situation. Sherry Redstone, who is one of the biggest shareholders of Paramount, inherited the company from her dad, who basically built Paramount into what it is today, over the last 50 or so years, especially the Viacom era, and then of course merging back together in recent times under Sherry's leadership. She's on the board, and she has more so favored the idea of Skydance, owned by David Ellison, who's got all the money in the world. I mean, they've been financing Paramount's slate of movies for years now. If you go to watch a Paramount movie like Top Gun Maverick, Mission Impossible, you have probably seen the Skydance logo that shows up before the movie starts. And so those are the folks that have been putting the money down for Paramount to basically be able to make all these movies. And so they are a big part of Paramount's past, present, and it seems like possibly the future, because this story in Variety, it outlines it that while on the surface Bob Bakish you know just left the company, it doesn't seem like that was something where he left on necessarily the best of terms, because it looks like his exit has to do with the fact that they're probably going to go now be merged into and or acquired by Skydance Media, and that
so I
seems
think
to be where things are going.
the most concerning issue here is truly all of the little factors that are setting off like massive flares, right? Like the fact that Sherry Redstone wouldn't step in his leisure. About 2 days ago, there was some rumors that they were going to fire Bob Bakish, and then all of a sudden he's gone. It's not even like he's phased out. Like normally a CEO is phased out of a company over the course of a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, not peace out, we're gone. And so I think all of the investors are kind of like freaking out right now. I'd be freaking out, because this is sort of giving massive, if we're ready to just toss in the towel, we're just going to toss in the towel. And I also think, the fact that they're using 3 executive heads to replace one CEO instead of just hiring a new CEO. Why does Sherry Redstone refuse to step in? It's giving some sort of like dramatic plot from a movie in which the primary shareholder is like, no, not me. I don't want to take responsibility for the company.
Yes.
Like, it's not good, guys. It's not good. And so Paramount Global being such a huge head, there's a lot of rumors now that it's like, well, what are all of these under companies going to do? Is CBS going to be able to stay on its own? Is CBS going to be sold off? Is CBS going to be taken over by the primary head of it right now? Like, nobody knows what's happening. The stock is plummeting because nobody knows what's happening. And Bob Bakish is pieced the fuck out, everybody. Gone. Bye. Which I don't know if I've ever seen that happen so quickly in such a huge company.
So this is definitely not normal. I mean, and the biggest thing that stuck out to me was the fact that it must be very temporary, the current arrangement, for them to set up the office of the CEO, where they essentially have, I believe, the head, the 3 big CEOs of like the 3 divisions that kind of sat under Bob Bakish. They're the ones who are sort of leading the charge now. Like, I think I was doing some research on this, and like the office of the CEO, let me see. So it's comprised of George Cheeks, who's the president and CEO of CBS. So that's obviously a big part of the Paramount portfolio. You have Chris McCarthy, who's president and CEO of Showtime MTV and Paramount Media Networks. And then you have Brian Robbins, who from the world of movies, you'd be familiar with him. He was at CinemaCon recently. He's the president and CEO of Paramount Pictures and Nickelodeon. So those 3 figures are now basically alongside Naveen Chopra, who's the CFO, and they have the board of directors who will be able to chime in. They kind of comprise the office of the CEO. Now, as you see in this Deadline article, like you mentioned, there were rumors that Bob Bakish might be on his way out because they have entered these exclusive merger negotiations with David Ellison, Skydance Media. So it was likely that this was going to happen. The fact that this did happen now in the way that it did, it just seemed to kind of hit people out of nowhere a little bit. And we'll see where things go, because from here on, it does seem like it's from the moment that all those merger and acquisition talks began last year for Paramount, when we were like, they're in financial trouble, they need some sort of like cash infusion or somebody to kind of buy them out or merge with them. We knew that Skydance was going to be a big player from the get-go, from like day one.
Yeah. And as of Monday, apparently they extended the final offer. But Sherry Redstone would actually take less money than what they initially offered her. So it seems that like lowered their offer now, which I guess if if the stock is plummeting makes sense.
It makes sense. I mean, they're looking at this.
Yeah.
This is as far as what's good for Paramount. I feel like Bob Bakish stepping away, obviously, this being a very public thing, because anytime a CEO steps away from a company as big,
Yeah.
you can't really hide that, right? Like you can't really. That's not something that can go unnoticed. It's, I mean, you're a publicly traded company, so to that end, I mean, this definitely did not help their cause. Like this should have been some. So but what it does say to me at least is that Bob Bakish wasn't a big fan of this at all. Like in fact, he could have waited to step away and, like you said, like have some sort of transition plan in place, because it seems like no matter who takes over when David Ellison has bought into Paramount through Skydance, it's not going to be Bob Bakish. So, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean he couldn't have stuck around a little longer to kind of make that transition happen. It
But
just
also, you
seems
want
to
to
me
talk about
now
an
that
end of an
Yeah.
era. He was with Paramount for 27 years.
27 years.
That's
Long time.
that is me. That is a fully
Yeah.
formed human me. That is
It's
me. Basically, the year
almost
I was born, Bob Bakish took control of Paramount. I mean, he wasn't CEO. How long was he CEO of Paramount?
I believe he was a CEO for like a good decade or so. Let me see. I've got a bunch of statements that that were sent out yesterday. The press
Yeah.
release and stuff. And going through it, I mean, in his comments, he said like he's had a tremendous amount of time. He spent a tremendous amount of time with the company, and he believes in the people that work for the company, and of course he's worked his way up into the role. I don't remember. I think he stepped in
Statement came
2016.
first, right?
Hmm?
His statement was issued first, and then Cherry Redstone.
Yes. Well, yeah. So he said he's sent out a statement to the company employees, and then Sherry Redstone chimed in, and then the statement from the office of the CEO came out, which
I
is
just
normal
really
for something
didn't-
like this. So
No, I know. I just
Yeah.
really didn't like the fact that she like almost copied and pasted some of his comments.
it's
like word
well
for word.
to
And
be
it's like,
to be fair, in the
I don't
situations
know.
like this, usually they're not the ones writing
People
their own
actually
statements.
writing the statements, that makes sense.
So I think that might explain that, like somebody was copy editing two things, and
That
they
person
sort of
should be
ended up-
fired. That person should be fired. Yep, because it just seems petty. That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
I
it's
mean, but-
crazy. It's an end of an era.
Yeah.
Did you want to go through any of the statements, or I mean, I feel
Well,
like
I was
that's kind of the lay of the land.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna mention briefly. You asked about Bob Bakish, his how
Yeah.
long he was the CEO. He came on in 2016 as an interim CEO, and he didn't think he was gonna be around very long as an interim, of course. But it turns out he's been with the company as CEO for like the better part of 8 years. And given that he has been there 27 years, if you do the math, he had been already with the company for almost 2 decades. So he was a seasoned veteran with Paramount. He worked his way up through the organization all the way to CEO, and he shepherded them through a very tough time, particularly when you look at like some of their more recent successes at Paramount. Of course, the Mission Impossible franchise, he oversaw a couple of movies under that. He oversaw the entire development, production, release, and post-release strategy for Top Gun Maverick, which has been their single biggest hit in recent years. So he's been a big part of that, keeping up with that Tom Cruise relationship, which is a big one. But we know that in recent years, in a world where streaming is a big deal, and companies are trying to kind of jostle their way into people's wallets for their share of the pie, Paramount Plus has been a business that I think it's on its way to profitability. And of course, with Paramount, they also have Pluto TV, which is a fast streaming service where you could just watch literally 24/7 marathons of anything you want, as long as you're willing to sit through the ads. And so they have multiple streaming services. They recently combined Showtime into Paramount, so now it's Paramount Plus with Showtime. And so they've got a lot of offerings. They've of course got Nickelodeon. You've got like CBS. CBS is still probably the most watched broadcast network television station in the country. They just had the Super Bowl this year where the Chiefs won. So the Paramount also has a huge footprint in the world of soccer, especially within the American broadcast media, where they carry the UEFA Champions League, as well as Serie A, the Italian league, and a number of other leagues like NWSL, the women's soccer league, as well as a lot of other sports that they have coverage around. So they have a big footprint in a lot of spaces. And of course, if they were to get divided up and split into different pieces before when Skydance takes over. There's a lot that they can divest, but we'll see where things go from here. It's just been a shocking, turn of events, but we'll see where things go from here. Now, Angelina, this is obviously not the only piece of news that we have got this week. We heard that Scooby-Doo is coming back to our screens. Did you look into that
I
at all?
did.
Like, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Being that I was such a huge Scooby-Doo fan as a kid, like it was the cartoon. Like it was my favorite cartoon, which makes sense because I watch murder mysteries and listen to murder mystery podcasts all the time. And this was like the junior version of that, right? With the dog. But what I did not know was that there was a Velma series on Max, which I had not even heard of until John.
It's good that you don't know what it is.
I was like, what is that?
That's the only question you need to ask. Just ask yourself that and then move on. Don't look into it. Don't learn anything about it. Just move on. You don't know.
Eventually it'll get canceled if nobody pays attention.
Apparently the second season has got a very mixed reviews. The first season seemed to be well received. Like that's what I've been hearing.
It wasn't.
It wasn't? Okay.
No.
All right. Well, there you go.
Wait, I immediately just looked at this and I'm like, what? Oh God. Even the cartoon, it's like a weird anime cartoon.
I mean, Scooby-Doo has been around forever. Like I grew up watching Scooby-Doo, and
oh yeah, same here. I watched the original show on Boomerang. I watched a pup named Scooby-Doo. I have VHS tapes of Zombie Island, and I think another one, which is Ghost.
There was, I was like, yeah, there's a lot of
my entire family
I have the Boomerang
loved
subscription.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah,
because it's like because like my parents grew up on it, then we all grew up on it, and it's
this looks like a rated R. Sorry guys, I got so distracted by Velma. I just googled Velma. I just googled it. It's confusing.
It's bad. It's bad. Like I tried watching it, and it's one of.
I just got literally like sucked into the video trailer. I was like, what the?
My friend who I guess hates himself. He's like, I'm gonna watch the whole thing because that's what he does. He's like, I need to judge it for what it is, and he watch it, and he's like, it's so bad. It's like it's what. Okay, consider this. Velma is so bad. It united the internet against it.
So why did they release a new one? It literally has a 1.6 out of 10 IMDb score.
Well, because
that's how low that is. 1.6 out of 10.
It got the 2 seasons were greenlit at the beginning, so it was gonna get 2 seasons no matter what. I don't know why, but it's definitely gonna get canceled because
Mindy Kaling plays Velma, which is okay. It's an interesting choice.
It's bad. Like it's like it constantly shits on the fans. It's horrible humor, terrible storyline. It makes no sense. It's just so mean-spirited. Everyone is either an idiot or it's a painful experience that nobody should be put through ever.
A painful experience, which actually kind of makes me sad because Constance Wu has like really been trying to make a comeback, and she's in this as Daphne, and she I don't know, the last thing she really needs is to be in another TV series.
Yeah, it's just not good.
I mean, Velma aside, the live action Scooby-Doo series that's meant to be like this hour-long, episodic TV show, Netflix is working on it, and they've already just recently launched Dead Boy Detectives, which is something that John has been really, really into. John, have you been watching that show?
I haven't been. The thing is, I had to for another show. I had to watch Knuckles. So I had to watch that first, and then I'm gonna be watching Dead Boy Detectives hopefully later today.
I mean, speaking of Paramount, that's we were talking about earlier. Knuckles is, that whole Sonic the Hedgehog universe is a big part of Paramount's studio strategy. They've got another Sonic movie coming out this year, right? Isn't that on the?
It's got Shadow the Hedgehog in it, voiced by Keanu himself.
We love him. We love him.
But I mean, John, do you have any sense of like what this show might look like, this live action Scooby-Doo? Because the last time we got live action Scooby-Doo was those Freddie Prinze Jr. movies, right?
I can tell you this, it's gonna be bad. because Greg Berlanti is producing it,
Oh
the
no.
man behind the Arrowverse and Riverdale.
Uh-oh.
So
Uh-oh.
Hey,
yeah,
okay,
that's
Riverdale kind of had this weird chokehold on people, and once you started
Uh-huh.
watching it, you couldn't stop. Like,
yeah, but
that's
it's
just
like a
the
It's
truth.
car
so bad you
crash. It's
can't
not in a
look
good
away.
way. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
that works for so much of the world's demographic at this point that, and when I say the world's, I mean me.
Mhm.
I get sucked
Mhm.
into it and
Okay.
I can't stop watching it.
I'm just gonna
Like
say
those
this.
terrible TikTok videos that are like 20 minutes long. Like, what? Why? Why are there 20-minute long miniseries on TikTok? And why can't I stop watching it despite the script being awful, bad?
Yeah.
So
But
just
take it as a man who watched Arrow, I watched The Flash, I watched Legends of Tomorrow. I watched a lot of Arrowverse stuff. I'm well versed in that shit, and none of it was good after like the first season. So
It's
I'm just gonna say this. I have no hope in this show. I have absolutely no hope whatsoever in this show. Like, it's live action. The only maybe saving grace is if they get Matthew Lillard back as Shaggy. I mean, the man still looks
Shaggy?
good.
Oh
Like, he's in
yeah,
his
yeah.
50s and
I mean,
he's aged very well. So like, get him as Shaggy and maybe you have a chance of this being good. But they won't, and it'll suck and it'll be terrible. And
I just feel like they should have the whole cast back and
well,
like
Freddie
maybe
Prinze
pass
Jr.
things
said he
on.
doesn't want to come back. He's like,
But
he's like,
why? And he and
I
his
had,
wife are like literally Daphne and I mean,
mhm.
how do you not have them back? Like that's
Yeah.
crazy to me.
yeah, he said he never wants to come back. He's like, I'm done with this. I don't want to ever come back to this franchise, which is fair because the movies weren't that great. I mean, they weren't like looking back, they were not like the worst thing ever, but like at the same time, it's like, I mean, also like Ryan Reynolds met Blake Lively on Green Lantern, and yet he never shuts up about how awful Green Lantern was.
I mean, we were
So
talking about that last week too. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like, you
Well,
know,
okay, so they didn't meet on that. They did what you did last summer, or I know what you did last summer.
yeah.
Originally, it was like this big '90s movie. Yeah, that was a great movie. They originally met on that.
Okay, so I guess there's some wiggle room there, but
Well, also Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar were like
Gellar.
the '90s it kids. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he did say,
but I
remember
feel like
he's-
Scooby Doo was kind of like the last of their career before they moved on. I haven't really seen them
yeah,
do a whole lot.
it's because I remember reading something Matthew Lillard wants to do like an R-rated third movie where it was like them older as the Scooby-Doo gang, and he's like, I think that would be really cool, like kind of give some closure to that live action universe. And he's like, I think that would be really cool if people are open to it. I'd totally do it. And Freddie Prinze Jr. eventually responded. He's like, I never want to come back. He's like, I don't want to. And
I wonder why though. Did he give a reason?
I just think like he's like, I think that part he's like, that part of my life is
Career
done and
done.
over with.
Yeah.
And as well as the fact the movies were not very well received at the time. So
Yeah.
going
They
back
weren't,
to a movie that wasn't well received, that he got a lot of flack for, it's understandable that like, oh, maybe he just, I don't want to be part of that terrible thing
So-
that I was a part of in my younger days. So
Well, as far as the new live action goes, apparently we don't have much hope for it here at Oh So Curious, but
no,
we're here for it
It's-
due to the nostalgia factor. We were all big fans.
I mean,
but I don't
yeah.
think any actors have been attached to it yet. It's just been
No,
it's just been
it's just-
greenlit. Netflix is picking it up. And
I mean, Greg
guess we'll have more
Berlanti's gonna
movies
have
to go.
something to do. You know, like
yeah,
no
he's like
Arrowverse anymore.
producing, and it's just like, oh. What dirt does this man have on everybody in the TV universe to keep getting jobs? That's the question I have. Like, what does this man have? What dirt does he have to keep
Riverdale did
getting-
really well. Like whether you liked it or not, it did really well. It had like 8 seasons.
It did.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Just because a
But
show lasts long doesn't mean it's good. Look at The Simpsons. Like
look at
that should have been
People
doomed
love
20 years ago.
Riverdale, so just because you don't like it, John, doesn't mean that it didn't do
Everybody
well
I've
overall.
talked to that watched that show, they're like, the only reason I watched this show because of how much of a train wreck it was. It wasn't because it was genuinely good.
No,
And the
I
fact
mean,
that
it was.
CW
that's
It
the
was
doesn't
same thing that
Riverdale.
I've
It's
kept
fine.
hearing about it. But
Yeah,
anyway.
but people kept watching it, so it made money. All those stars
also
went on to
CW
have
doesn't
full-on
seem to
lives.
cancel stuff like quickly. They rarely cancel stuff or end stuff like very early on.
That is actually not true because
a
I had
usual
several
CW show
CW
lasts
shows
like
that I loved.
5 or more
I
seasons.
loved that were canceled after one season. So that is untrue.
Well, but the thing is nowadays, well, CW is also
Speculation
ownership.
in the court.
Yes.
Sorry.
I think CW used to not end shows quickly because most of their shows would go on streaming, and that's
Mhm.
where the studios making the shows made most of their money, not on the CW, because CW was always a collaboration between Paramount and Warner Brothers. So now
Mhm.
that they've become like two minority shareholders, while the next, I think it was a Nexstar bought them, they are basically
something
the
like
ones
that,
running
yeah.
CW. They basically cleaned house, and they changed the look of the network, they changed the programming slate. So there's an overall. Greg Berlanti has got an overall deal with Warner Brothers Television, which it seems this is a project that now comes under that. And as for Warner Brothers, this is not something they're gonna put on Max, but they're like, as long as you have Netflix willing to pay for it, then why not? And if Netflix cancels
pays
it,
for
Netflix.
anything.
That's true. So we'll see. We'll see how it does. I mean, look, the thing about something like this, like a new live action show for a franchise that you love, is that if you don't like this, you still have all the versions of Scooby Doo that you do like.
Yeah.
They're still around. You can still go back and watch those and enjoy.
Go
them.
back and watch Zombie Island. It's better anyway.
Yeah. But John, there's also this news is hot off the press today. We got this in deadline here. Evangeline is getting was a package that Warner Brothers has now basically bought with Margot Robbie, Olivia Wilde, Simon Kinberg all attached, and it's based on a comic book from creator Rob Liefeld. So
yes,
what did you think about this news?
It's certainly interesting. I don't really know a lot about like more like seems like more indie stuff. I mean, I know Rob Liefeld as the famous Deadpool creator who can't draw feet. I know Rob Liefeld very well. Just for him
dude, there's
being
a new
meme.
Rob. There's
like,
a reference in the new Deadpool movie trailer. Did you catch
yeah,
it?
it's Liefeld's totally
yeah.
feet or something like that in the background.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to bring that
But
up.
that's like an in joke. I don't know. It's just like this seems like an interesting idea because like an angel who fights like evil, like demonic forces. That's just a really cool idea. I know there's a lot of characters like that. Because it's just like easy, like the ultimate good of like God and the ultimate evil of the devil of like duking it out and their minions duking it out. That's just like really cool. The things that like I'm kind of iffy about, like, is Margot Robbie starring? I'm like, I'm kind of sick of Margot Robbie at this point. I was never a huge fan of her to begin with. I'm kind of sick of her a little bit. But she brings in the money, so that's understandable because look at Barbie, that brought in $1 billion in like a week.
Barbie is probably by far her like highest grossing movie.
Oh yeah.
Outside of that, she's I mean, Suicide Squad did well, the second one did not, but
yeah.
She's not exactly,
But like Barbie is like the hot ticket now. That's like she's getting off of Barbie. That's like got a ton of money. So like, okay, let's do it. Olivia Wilde has some interesting things she did.
She's a great
she did do Booksmart.
Director.
She did, but she also did Don't Worry, Darling, which had a lot of controversy behind it. So I feel like this is definitely a weird project. Like it's definitely, I'm intrigued with it. And you have also Simon Kinberg, I think, producing it. So that, and who directed the last quote unquote X-Men movie.
That was his that was his directorial debut. Terrible.
Yeah, and but again, that's him as director. Simon Kinberg did produce a lot, and he did produce a lot of good stuff. So maybe if he just stays as producer, this will be fine. Yeah. But this is sort of like an interesting sort of project, and I don't know. It's just like it's curious. it does have like a lot going for it, whether that be good or bad. But I'm just, yeah, it's just like a very curious thing. I don't know a ton about it, but
We'll see what
I'd watch it
happens.
if it looks good, you know. But that's me being a comic book nerd, so yeah.
Yeah, Angelina, what did you think about this? Like, is this something that
mean,
interests you, or
No, no. It's also too early to tell anything
Yeah.
because I've never heard of the comic and I have no idea. I think Margot Robbie and Olivia Wilde together make an interesting pair, but that's about it. I know nothing else about it, so it's we're rocking. We're seeing. I feel like Margot Robbie is kind of throwing herself at a lot of different things, more on the production level right now.
Yeah.
Which I guess makes sense because Barbie did so well, but the few movies that she was the lead in prior to that
yeah,
weren't
she's not the
great.
most
So
bankable actor based on her
No.
resume. But like
yeah,
Jen said,
so
Barbie.
and it's kind of sad because after Wolf of Wall Street, like she really was so incredible, but then she kind of just played the same character over and over and over again.
Mm.
And a lot of the big ticket blockbusters that she was on, like the next several ones prior to Barbie, really kind of flopped. So
Yeah.
I feel like she's throwing herself more into the production level. I love to see more women in production and directing. I think that's what's going to change cinema. You know, it's good to see. I feel like they might take on new characters and lend a more feminine voice to some comic books, which I feel like comic book movies, it's predominantly male, not even historically. It's still just completely male driven. So it might be nice to have a character that clearly, just based off of the front page, is hypersexualized, created by two women versus men. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about this, well, if you look into the article, which I'm sure you guys were it's on the screen. Lucky Chap is a label that Margot Robbie is part of the ownership group there. So she's gonna be involved in this as a producer no matter what. And depending on how the script turns out, she might be the lead or one of the characters in the movie. It's gonna be interesting. I mean, this is still early on. Like, this is one of those things where the news comes out about this package being bought by Warner Brothers now, but it may take them a couple of years for this to actually get to a movie theater near you. So we'll see where the project goes. Sometimes things fizzle out. Sometimes they turn into something completely different. We'll see how what comes of it. I mean, the title Evangeline certainly sounds interesting. I mean, it's like Avengers and Angeline or something to that. I don't know. Like, I don't know where word comes from, but it just caught my eye. I'm like, huh. And the way the font type, if you see the logo, it sort of reminds me of the Conan the Barbarian logo.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, that's what I was thinking
of. But yeah,
they are making a
we'll
Red
see
Sonja movie, so that should be good too. I
They
feel
are.
like this might go ahead. Just a little quick tidbit before we move on. The Red Sonja movie is looking good so far, and they've been kind of working on that. So I feel like if that's released and that's successful, then we'll see more stuff like this.
Absolutely.
This'll get ahead, kind of like when Blade way back when was like a hit. Then X-Men got greenlit, then Spider-Man got greenlit, and like ushered in that comic book thing. So I feel like if Red Sonja does really well, because that's like a pretty known character, even because we did have a movie back in the 80s. So I feel like if that's done really well, we'll get like Evangeline, I think it is. That'll get a greenlit like further. They'll start taking it seriously.
I mean,
and then we'll get more stuff like that.
And this happens all the time in Hollywood, right? Like, because of John Wick, a movie like Nobody exists, but that wouldn't have happened if John Wick wasn't a huge phenomenon. I mean, now they're making a sequel to Nobody, and like we're on to the 5th John Wick movie. So like, yes, absolutely. It's like the rising tide raises all ships. Now, this is the last story that we're going to look at before we move on to reviewing challengers. And this is a little bit to do with professional wrestling. I'm a fan of professional wrestling, so I wanted to include this. 7 Bucks Productions, which is The Rock's production company, is set to produce Who Killed WCW. It's a new docuseries for Vice TV. Now, the big part of this is, of course, not just the fact that we're getting a show that's gonna document the rise and fall of WCW, World Championship Wrestling, which was the if you were around in the 90s, they were the big competitor to WWF, now as known as WWE. And eventually WWE ended up buying them out because Turner Broadcasting kind of they merged together with um, Time Warner merged together with AOL, and the new ownership did not want anything to do with wrestling, and so it was a struggling brand. And then WWE ended up buying out their biggest competitor, which ended the Monday Night Wars of the 90s, where the two shows would go head to head on Monday nights and would draw some incredible, ratings on television back when streaming wasn't a thing. So we have had documentaries about this in the past, and Vice TV has done other wrestling related, documentary series. I think they have like the Dark Side of the Ring or something to that effect that they've been running for years, and it's in wrestling circles that's
Mhm.
always caught the attention of all the big wigs and certainly the fans of the business. Now, Seven Bucks Productions, of course, The Rock he's fully diving back into the world of wrestling at this point. Like he's on the board of directors at TKO, which is the new owner of WWE and UFC combined together. And he was a big part of WrestleMania this year, and of course, he's been producing a lot of things, not just starring in movies anymore. He's very involved in the back end. He's one of the owners of the UFL, the Spring Football League that's currently ongoing. So as part
Mhm.
of all of that, this is the latest project that he's signed up on alongside his producing partner Danny Garcia. They actually were married at one point, and they've got a really good working relationship, and they're both are founders of Seven Buck Productions. So I wanted to bring that up. I mean, this seems interesting. As somebody who loves his wrestling history, I would love to see what they come up with here, because certainly now that The Rock's part of the WWE board, the board, he's got access. They can then use all the archival footage that WWE owns because they bought all the video library of WCW when they bought them.
Mhm.
So it will give some good insight into what that was like, on the
I
how the
had no
company was
idea
run.
that there was like another WWE. I didn't know. I had no
In the
clue.
90s, it was WCW and
It's like
WWF. Like they were the two, like the Monday Night Wars. Like it's, I mean,
the
infamous in
fact
some ways.
that there was
Yeah.
this much wrestling available on
Oh
TV.
yeah.
Ew.
I know so many
Ew.
wrestling fans, and I
Ew.
just by proxy at this point, I just kind of get inundated from them about all this stuff, and I'm like, I don't care, but like it's also weirdly interesting at the same
The
time.
funniest South Park episode was about wrestling and
Yeah.
making fun of wrestling, and I think it is still the best episode of all time. So that's how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. It'll be fun. It's kind of nice to see Dwayne Johnson getting back to his roots. So I feel like so many people forget that he did come from wrestling. That's how he made his
Yeah.
name. And I think it's always really nice for people to like pay homage to where they came from in that sense.
Yeah.
He's definitely more on the business side of it. He's a really nice guy. I worked on one of his sets
Yeah.
once. He's a super sweet dude. So it's always exciting to see him doing his thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's somebody when he's in the room, you will notice he lights up the room. He's got a presence to
Also,
him,
he's
and
like huge, so it's like
he's
kind
He
of
is
hard
you
to
huge,
can't
but
miss
he's
it.
also super
Yeah.
sweet. Like
Yeah.
just genuinely, like you make eye contact with
That's what
him,
I've
he'll give
heard,
you a
yeah.
big smile. Like that's just his personality. He's super kind guy. So it's always really nice to just see those people consistently working and doing good things. So
Yeah, I mean, a couple of fun facts when part of his
my
agreement to
Siri
come onto
thinks
the
I'm
board.
talking to her. So
Oh yeah, Siri always thinks that. That's oh look, my Siri's thinking I'm talking to her now.
Sorry, guys.
I was gonna say a couple of fun facts about Dwayne Johnson. Like when he signed up for this, coming back on, or not coming back on, but coming onto the board of directors at TKO. One of the things that he got as part of his compensation package was, just full rights to a bunch of trademarks. Like, for the longest time, the name The Rock he only owned like 50% of the rights to The Rock, the name. So like Vince McMahon owned the rest, or WWE owned the rest. He now owns that name entirely. So like when he calls himself The Rock, he's got complete, trademark rights to that now. Also, he recently at this year's WWE Hall of Fame ceremony, they they inducted Rock's grandma into the Hall of Fame because she was a pioneering female wrestling promoter at a time when wrestling promoters were basically all male. Like even today, it's not very common. And so he inducted his grandmother. His mom is still around, so she was there too. So it's fun. It's always lovely to see them. You know how when he's interacting with her, and as you said, he's genuinely a good person, and
Yeah.
he keeps himself occupied. Like he does a lot of things. Like he's the kind of guy who's just going, going, going. And you can see that that's why he's one of the biggest movie stars in the world today. So yeah, I mean, hey, this is another docu-series about the rise and fall of WCW. It's probably going to cover the Monday Night Wars, all the controversy, and all basically a very much a booming time for professional wrestling in the 90s. So yeah, I'm going to be looking forward to it, and I'm sure like John, a lot of your wrestling friends will be looking forward to it as well. So
Maybe. I
yeah,
don't know. I have to ask them now. I'm
yeah.
curious.
I mean, they might not have heard about it. Maybe let them know, like, hey, this is coming up. So,
I
but
just
yeah,
know,
guys,
yeah,
yeah,
it'll be fun.
it's gonna be interesting. I'm excited to see it. But that was the news. And now let's transition over to talking about a movie that was on all our dockets recently. Challengers. It's the movie of the week, and we're here to talk about it. Zendaya gives a phenomenal performance. It's of course a movie that people were drawn to for the saucy trailer, but like then there's a lot of story and some fantastic acting performances behind the movie, and it's quite frankly like I can't think of another good tennis movie since like Match Point, which was like in the early 2000s. So Angelina, you went to see the film.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to get your thoughts on this. Challengers, like going into it, what did you feel? And because we talked about it last week, and you seemed pretty excited, but now having seen it, what are your thoughts about the movie?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was probably one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. Certainly better than Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. No offense or anything to anybody that loved that movie, but it just wasn't. It wasn't it. And I feel like I haven't seen a really, really good movie since Dune 2 or Oppenheimer. So this was so much fun. I think this is one of the best soundtracks. Like so many of the scenes were so musically motivated, and it was one of those movies that you really had to watch because they said a million words without saying anything. They really depended on subtle looks and smirks and smiles, and the cast was just phenomenal. I truly was just like blown away. Luca, how do you say his name? Guadagnino?
I want to say that's correct.
So he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Some of the shots were like these weird POV shots that were clearly done with it had to have been a drone or something, like just crazy, but they did these like POV shots as the tennis ball, which made me really nauseous for like a brief moment. I was like, ugh.
Oh.
It was cool, but it was weird. And the chemistry between these three people, impeccable. There's really, and it's so crazy because I really think there's only like maybe 5 people in the whole movie. Maybe in one of the scenes one of the scenes, like it's a locker scene, there's quite a few people, but there's really only these 3 people on screen at all times. And I don't know if you really ever see a movie in which the core cast is really like that firm. Like you truly, when I say that there were only like 5 people on screen at all time, like there was nobody in this movie other than these 3 people, and they killed it. The chemistry is phenomenal, incredible, insane. And a lot of the critic reviews really voice what I have to say about it. Like it's just one of my favorites is it's sexy as hell. The threesome ignites the screen with their combustible chemistry. 10 out of 10. For the buzz is warranted. Facts.
Mhm.
And so just in general, I feel like the critics and I are on the same scale. The tomato meter is a little bit higher than the audience score. I think maybe this movie might be too gritty for some people, which I could see. It's also very much rated R. Like you will see naked people throughout this movie. I'm kind of happy that I didn't see the cast like fully naked. That would have made me like more uncomfortable, I think. But basically everybody else, you see like full frontal nudity, full backside nudity. So it's a little bit grittier than I think what you would anticipate from Zendaya, but she kind of said that. And overall, like just a really good keeps you sort of enraptured movie, just very sucked in. Her character is an asshole. It is what it is. But actually, who completely stole the show for me, like Zendaya was great, but it wasn't actually Zendaya that was my favorite. It was Josh O'Connor who played Patrick Zweig. Okay, he truly plays this completely sort of immoral fuckboy. Like, just truly the word fuckboy is the first and utter thing to come to mind. The whole movie, he's just like, no, it's fine. Like, he just sort of like, he's a trust fund baby and he lives his whole life playing tennis, but he like won't even ask his parents for money. He keeps losing all these tennis championships. He has so much potential. He doesn't play into any of it. He was like one of the best juniors tennis players along with his partner, who was his best friend. The friendship between Josh O'Connor and Mike Feist, their characters, probably one of the most interesting male friendships I've ever seen related on screen. Like, I almost wonder how they got there, because it was somehow more than brothers, but like more than teammates. It was almost like they were in a relationship the whole movie, and they play into that the whole time, and I almost feel like it was not scripted. Like, I feel like it was just them that sort of did these whole things. Like the photo that you're showing right now, one of the most interesting things that I've ever seen happen in a script, essentially Art Donaldson, in the red, goes to sit down.
Yep.
And before he does, his best friend, like almost like a brother, they've known each other since they were 12. They went to boarding school together. Patrick uses his foot to scoot his stool even closer to him before he sits down. I've only ever seen that happen in a relationship, like on a date. So the fact that they did all of these little subtle character things were just so interesting to me. Like, it was, the dynamic between all the characters was so funny, so weird. Zendaya's character very honestly points out that they have some sort of weird like romance going on that's like a little bit more than just a normal friendship.
Yeah.
And yeah, the characters are not real, but this movie was inspired by like a very real tennis match. Overall, it's a really good watch. I just feel like even if you don't like tennis, you're gonna like tennis after this. This movie makes tennis look sexy. So
yeah,
what I got.
It certainly sounds like it. I mean,
John you can clearly hear from my review that I'm really pumped about this movie. Just because there were so many good acting choices, so many good directing choices, so many interesting shots. The dynamic is so interesting. And when I tell you the soundtrack, like, I almost wanted to clap for the soundtrack, because they use that to motivate the scenes in so much of the movie. So it's game on when they play this one soundtrack, like when they play this one song. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, you're like excited for it. And I don't know if I felt that way about any movie truly since like some of my favorite 80s movies. Not that I was around when they came out, but I was a big 80s movie fan when I was younger. And I just don't know if I've seen like a movie that is so soundtrack motivated since. So yeah, go see the movie. You have to. Gotta see it. Dan, your sound just completely cut out.
I know, I completely cut out. But yeah, I was saying, I haven't seen this movie yet, but I am so interested in it because everybody keeps telling me this is a great film. I think ultimately they made the right decision to push this back because it's so star driven that they needed, Zendaya out on the circuit promoting this movie for it to really maximize its returns. And it couldn't happen during all the strikes last year in Hollywood. So yeah, I mean, despite the fact that it got pushed back a couple of times, looks like Warner Brothers and Amazon MGM Studios, they've got a gem in their hands, and it's the start of the summer movie season. We're gonna have the Fall Guy coming up this week, and you got the Planet of the Apes movie coming out. There's a lot of big movies coming out. I think this will serve to be good counter programming to that. Like, if you don't necessarily want to see one of those big action blockbusters, just go watch something like this, which gives you a lot of tension and drama and just like there's a lot of sex sexy scenes in there, like you said.
I like
This
how
is a
you
movie
stuttered
that
over that. You
I
were like, "Oh
stuttered because I was
God."
trying to come up with the right
You were like, "Oh
word,
God."
without tripping into something that I don't want to. I mean, John, do you want to add to that at all? Like, because you haven't seen it yourself, but like, uh, is this something that you're interested in going to check out?
I might check it out on streaming. I'm trying to save my money whenever I can.
Yeah,
So I want to like we'll be talking about it a little bit later, but Fall Guy, I'm definitely Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Those are the ones I want to spend money on. So not
yeah,
saying this isn't great, but like it doesn't seem like my type of movie. But even then, like I'm still curious about it. I still want to see it. Just it's one of those things like I'm willing to wait for it to eventually
yeah.
finally watch it. But I do plan to eventually watch it because it seems intriguing and
Right.
I do love tennis. Even, prior to the nudity
The
driven
movie.
film, I do like tennis. Like I
Yeah.
played tennis as a kid and I was always interested in it. I was surprisingly very good at it. So just gotta, I know it's surprising. A man with a body like this, you wouldn't think he would be good at tennis. I was really good at tennis, but unfortunately I haven't played in years, so I'm probably not as good anymore. But so I'm intrigued, but
Sorry, you guys. My face is not at what John was saying. My face is at reading. So the 88% was the critics, right? I was
Uh-huh.
confused why the audience score was so low. These audience these audience recaps of this movie are terrible and the
yeah.
most ridiculous. And this is how I know I'm a movie person now, because the exact reasons why people are saying this is a horrible movie is exactly why I think it was like the best movie.
Right.
The best movie.
That's why I
It
never
literally
trust
is
Rotten
like
Tomatoes.
very confusing movie, jumps back and forth in time. Do you have the IQ level of a 5-year-old? Like, it literally goes back and forth. It literally time logs it for you. It's not confusing at all. The movie has me on edge. The actors, the score. See, I like that one. My least favorite review was okay. No, most of these agree with me. It was just that one that mainly was like, excuse me. I want my money back. Horrible movie. 30 minutes in, people were leaving the theater. 30 minutes later, I was asleep. What? How do you fall asleep in a movie? Like,
Clearly not the right movie for that person. Like movies hit us all in different ways. It's just because you didn't like a movie doesn't mean somebody else can't enjoy it. And if you enjoyed it doesn't mean everybody else is gonna like it. Like that's just kind of how
no, I
movies go. I
really
mean, but
DDL. I'm sorry, I can't with you. Very confusing movie, jumps back and forth in time. Like, no, no, I can't. You can't watch like the majority of the movies on planet Earth. Angelina's feeling
yeah.
spicy today. She's gonna really die hard for this movie, apparently. I
Well,
just
I
was
mean,
a little
88.
confused. I was like, the critics and I get along on this one. That's what it
There
is.
you go. I mean, that happens every once in a while. Like, well, you don't the popular opinion doesn't agree with our opinion. That's fine. 76% is not as high as the audience as the critic score of 88%.
Mhm.
That I think 70 anytime I see an audience score for a movie that's lower than 85%, that doesn't always bode well, because usually when you're looking at audience reviews, most people who do submit those are the ones who really care about the film. Either they really love it or they really hate it. So those,
Mm.
so then for me, seeing this score doesn't bode well for the movie in terms of its financial success, especially considering all the big movies that are coming out in the upcoming weeks, whether it's The Fall Guy or Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, or even beyond that later in the summer, you got Deadpool and Wolverine and such. So we'll see where how this thing performs. It as a movie, it's a great time if you want to go and watch it. It's only different. That's the thing that will play in its favor. Is this movie is different from virtually every other movie that is out right now. So it's very much going to give you a unique experience that no other movie playing in theaters is going to give you right now. And that's as far as choices go, we are spoiled for choice, and I'm glad that the movies are back to a point where you can go to a theater, you can watch a horror movie, you can watch a drama like Challengers, or you can watch something like The Fall Guy, which is your typical, or suddenly sounds like your typical summer blockbuster, rom-com, action adventure sort of a movie. But guys, I mean, overall, let's see how things shake out. We'll keep checking in
10
on
out of
challengers.
10 would recommend. If you
Yes.
fall asleep, I will fight you. Sorry. It's
In a
ridiculous.
tennis match.
In a
Ridiculous.
tennis match. Yes. All right. Well, with that said, let's keep the show. Let's keep the ball rolling here. So, let's talk about DCU Daily. So, guys, welcome back to another episode of DCU Daily. Today, we're talking about Green Lantern. We talked about Green Lantern recently. We were talking more specifically about Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner, who's gonna be, guest starring in Superman next year. But today, we're talking more, just I guess, generically, what is the Green Lantern Corps going to look like within the DCU? Are we going to get a war of the Green Lanterns? Because certainly, if you go by what James Gunn has recently said, or at least not said, but he's posted an image across all of his social media with just like the Green Lantern, the gloved hand with the ring on it shooting upwards. It's an image that comes from a comic where we get to see the Green Lanterns go to war. And John, so I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on this. What did you think about this? Like, you came across it, of course, whether it was on
Yeah.
Threads or Instagram or Twitter,
Right.
wherever you saw James Gunn post it. What what are your thoughts on this? Does this hint at something regarding the Green Lanterns in the DCU?
I think it's James Gunn loves to tease us. Like that's his favorite thing. He loves to tease the audience and just have us go crazy. And then 3 weeks later, we text him all of our theories, and then he shuts down every single one. And that's just what he loves to do at this point, which is fine. Like I guess that's how he gets his jollies. So he posted this image. There was a famous miniseries called War of the Green Lanterns back in 2011. That went across multiple books: Green Lantern, Green Lantern Corps, and Green Lantern. I think Emerald Knights or Emerald something was all three of those, and it was how. So War of the Green Lanterns was about how an older guardian from like the beginning of time, almost when like the Guardians were first formed. They banish this guy Krona. He becomes and they banish him, and many years later he wants to come back, destroy the Green Lanterns, destroy the Guardians, take over the universe, of course. So with all of that, how would that tease? Now, obviously, our job is to look way too much into this sort of thing. So let's say, for the sake of hypotheticals and arguments, War of the Green Lanterns will inspire the first ever like season of Lanterns, which I think would be an intriguing way, because a lot of people were kind of confused on why it was called Lanterns and not Green Lanterns or Green Lantern Corps, because that was what the movie was going to be called way back when there was a movie back in the DCEU. That's what a lot of the titles of the comics were called, Green Lantern Corps. And so, like, why lanterns? Well, one, nowadays there's multiple cores across the entire emotional spectrum. So there's that. So they'll probably bring in multiple cores in the show. But in terms of season one, if War of the Green Lanterns is anything to go by, well, in that story, the four main Green Lanterns at the time, which were Hal, John, Guy, and Kyle, they all became different lantern colors. Hal became yellow, Guy became red, John became indigo, and Kyle became blue. So it was because of like I haven't read this comic, so I don't know, but I believe it was because of like what Krona was doing, and he was, I believe, mind controlling Green Lanterns through their rings. And so maybe the reason it's called Lanterns is because they can't call it Green Lanterns, because in the first season, I know it's hard to base something off of just one season, but maybe it'll start with Lanterns because these characters, all four of them will, or at this case, three, which will be introduced in the DCU, they'll be getting, they won't be Green Lanterns, and they'll have to take all, they'll have to be these other cores to, defeat Krona. So that could be an interesting way of why the title is the way it is. And way back when James Gunn announced this, he said it was going to be Hal and John, and he also said that it was going to be a true detective-like mystery. Now, I think taking various aspects of the War of the Green Lanterns, not necessarily adapting it, because I don't think they're going to adapt it, because the way James Gunn likes to do things, he likes to take from various different aspects and combine them into one. So
Right.
so that's what I feel like he's going to do here. He's going to take like something from this, a little bit from here, a little bit from here, a little bit from here. But this might be the main like kind of storyline with Krona as a villain, and then them going off to other cores in order to defeat him. And why I'm mentioning this is because that could be a really good true detective like mystery. First, the seed that is planted is the fact, wow, these other Green Lanterns are acting really weird. So that's interesting, and because they're mind controlled. So it's like, okay, so Hal and John try to get to the bottom of this. Maybe they'll have Guy in there too. I would imagine they do, since they're, having him in Superman, not Legacy. So like, okay, that's interesting. So then they dig deeper and they try to find like, why are they getting mind control? And that brings them to the Guardians' past, and that brings them further to Krona, and Krona's like the head honcho, and they'll have to defeat him. Obviously, that technically wouldn't be a mystery anymore because we're getting this, so that wouldn't be a mystery. So maybe not that specifically, but that aspect of like trying to find out and finding out why the Guardians are the way that they are. And that might bring in later on, if this show goes on for multiple seasons, why maybe Hal loses trust in them and then eventually becomes Parallax, and we'll get Kyle Rayner as a Green Lantern, because that could be really interesting. So, but I think that would be a really
Yeah.
cool idea to bring in this Krona character. And I'm not just saying that because I wrote my own Green Lantern show and Krona was the main villain of season 1. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that I am great at predicting DC stuff. I'm just saying it's a really interesting thing to take, because I feel like if you have Sinestro season 1, I feel like you'll blow your load too early, or even Atrocitus, who's another really good villain. I feel like just having another core as the main villain of season 1, I feel like that's just you're going into it too fast. You got to like kind of set things up. So I feel like having Krona as a villain or something like that, I think that would be a really good idea, because he's well known enough, but not too well known like Sinestro, that people, maybe like they'll be intrigued and they won't know what to expect with this character. And they also did state that it's going to primarily take place on Earth, probably because of budget. But I think with that, they might be discovering some things about Earth, and that might lead into some Blackest Night stuff. How like Earth was like the epicenter of
Yeah.
the universe. That could be an interesting take. But yeah,
Yeah.
like I am kind of going a little bit everywhere. But I feel like Krona is like a really good, whether they do adapt War of the Green Lanterns or not, I think Krona would be a really good villain if they do decide to take that aspect. And I think it would be like, I'm excited for that murder mystery. I think that's a really cool aspect, because True Detective is great. And I think
It
that's a really
is.
inspiration to take it from.
Yeah.
So I
I mean,
feel
I feel like you could combine that with even like the first season of The Expanse, which was very much a murder mystery, sort of. That's how they started. And I thought that was one of the best seasons of The Expanse because of how it kind of plays out with them finding everything out, and
right.
then how
Yeah.
the
I
various
never
different
watched it, so I'll
thread.
take your word for it.
Well, dude,
yeah.
all the plot threads kind of combine at the it's great. But I see exactly what you mean, and I'm like, you know, because like that the Expanse is more that sci-fi, space-based
Right,
sci-fi
right,
sort of
right.
thing, and then True Detective, and I'm like, that's the Lanterns, like right there, you know, like you can kind of add those pieces together. But yeah, I mean, it's this if this is a hint at something, I mean, it could be just that
Yeah.
James Gunn is like, we're going into production on this. I mean, you know, he's
Or
posted images like
expect
this.
something later on, because I know there
Yeah,
were a couple articles where it's like expect like James Gunn to release stuff at Comic Con, which is like, yeah, fire is hot. Of course, we're gonna get
right.
stuff at Comic
Yeah,
Con, but I think it's also like specifically we might even get Green Lantern stuff soon because I mean it's been pretty much confirmed that Chris Mundy and Damon Lindelof are gonna be in the series, are gonna be producing slash show running the series. So we might be getting some more Green Lantern stuff even way before Comic Con because that's in July. So we might be getting stuff way sooner than that, specifically Lanterns related, and he's just kind of teasing us now, or he's just cock teasing his audience like he always does. Whatever that may be, I'm here for it because I'm just curious. I just want Green Lanterns done right. I mean, I am wearing green. I didn't plan that, but for the sake of argument, I totally did plan that, and we'll move on from there. But I think
I
Chrono would be
believe
a
you.
really good
I'll take
villain.
your word for it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
but yeah, it's
it's
cool
interesting
image too.
because it's yeah, this is from the cover of I believe the Aftermath comic
Yeah,
that I had up earlier. So, you know, there's of course, like you said, there it's a multi-parter, like it's a big story. It takes place over the course of, you know, several issues, and there's a lot to cover. And, you know, if the one thing about James Gunn is that he has this ability to get the everyman interested. I think what he realizes is that when he shares an image but doesn't tell you exactly what his intent is, not only does it spark all those comic book fans
oh
to
yeah.
leave comments and speculate on it, but it probably brings in a lot of people who are not like comic book fans necessarily, but are just interested in what's going on. And through this, they get educated, interested, and pulled into the world of the comics. Like today, he also posted about, you know, I think it was the 27-year anniversary of the first introduction of Mr. Terrific. So I think that's you know, he's been doing a great job of just, you know, repping for the genre of superhero movies like National Superhero Day, and just really, you know, giving us a place, a safe place to celebrate the world of comic book, you know, fandom. And of course, Mr. Terrific is going to be a part of the movie Superman. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, that's and I think you could say the same about the lanterns. Like it looks like lanterns are going to be, you know, done right. Like, and we have gone through so many false starts over the last 10 years. Ryan Reynolds is still talking about it. I can't wait to hear another reference to that in the new Deadpool and Wolverine because it's probably going to be there. But I'm excited to see the lanterns fully realized in all their glory in live action, the way that they deserve to be. Because in the animated shows, in the animated movies,
Mhm.
as well as of course in the comics, you know, they're some of the most interesting characters that you will find, and the stories are told on just this epic cosmic scale, which whether it's being adapted for television or movies, you know, if you do it right, there's so many places you can go. And of course, War of the Green Lanterns is just one of those sources of inspiration, like you said, that's probably going to get mixed together with a bunch of other, you know, comic book references, as well as maybe some original storytelling, you know, in terms of how they put the pieces together. So I'm excited for this. I mean, do you think there's a chance now that we might be getting lanterns sooner than we expected? Because it could be that he posted this as a hint at we're putting this thing into production. Like this show might be coming
That
our
could
way
be
next
it.
year,
I
maybe.
mean, the sooner the better. Like that's
Yeah.
my thing.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if I don't think they'll be in production soon because they're working on Peacemaker now. That's going to be the second DCU show after Creature Commandos. And then they're probably going to have Waller because I remember we talked about that a
Right.
couple weeks ago with James Gunn saying Waller was going to be first and
Mhm.
then well after Creature Commandos that is. Um and then the strikes kind of messed that up. So now Peacemaker is coming before Waller. So it seems like it'll be Creature Commando in terms of TV shows, Creature Commandos, Peacemaker, Waller. So I maybe after that we'll get Lanterns, which I'd be stoked about because again, I do love me some Green Lanterns. Guy Gardner's great. Hal Jordan's pretty damn good. I like Jon Stewart. I know my buddy, me and my buddy were talking about this. He's like, I fucking hate Jon Stewart. He's like the worst. He sucks. I don't get why he's so popular. And it's like, I don't know what to tell you, but Kyle Rayner is great. I want my girl Jessica Cruz to be done right, but just not Simon Bass. Nobody likes Simon Bass, so he can fuck off. But I just want to see these guys and gals done well, and just keep Mark Guggenheim and Greg Berlanti away from it as far as possible, and you should get a pretty good movie or a pretty good show. So yeah, I'm stoked for that. Whatever inspiration we do get.
Yeah. By the way, we got a comment from Hunter Iggy, a question really. What are your thoughts, John, on James Gunn saying that the Superman movie has the longest production schedule that he's ever worked on?
I mean, that
Do you
makes
think
sense.
that's a good thing, bad thing, just statement of
I
fact?
feel like that's because one, he's the head, like he's the CEO, so he can work on it for as long as he fucking wants. He's the head of DC Studios. He's like, I can work on this forever and nobody can say no because who's gonna tell me no? Peter Safran? Come on. But even then, because like when you think about like all of his other movies, he had to, he had higher ups. He had them to talk to. So
Kevin
and
Feige and
as well as
stuff.
the
Although,
fact, yeah,
yes,
Kevin
yeah.
Feige. And like Guardians was part of the MCU, and MCU is known for like kind of assembly line stuff where they got to crank things out really quickly. So he has to get like he had to get that done really quickly. Now he's like, what higher ups? I am the higher ups. So he's like, I can work on this for super long, and I think he's also seeing how the landscape of superhero movies are. A lot of people are complaining that like the effects are not very good. So it might be with the fact like he really wants to get this right, especially with a Superman movie. We haven't gotten one in 12 years. Well, when this comes out, it's going to be 12 years. And he wants to make sure these are done right and possibly the VFX. And he's also said multiple times that like they're not going to have a release date until they have a script. And he's like, it seems like he's heading the it's all about the creative visionary force behind these movies and TV shows and make sure that they get their vision out, which is less like the Marvel where it's like we have to get things out as fast as possible so that people can, so we can make money, which it's more of a business thing. This is more of a creative thing, which both have pros and cons. So I think with Gunn saying like, okay, this will be the longest production schedule. So I think that's just him being like, I don't really have anyone to like kowtow to, so I can do this for however long I want, but not saying like I'm getting hoity-toity about it, like, oh, I can be an asshole about it. I don't think he's saying that at all. I just think
Right.
he's like I can finally put everything I can into this to make sure this is the fucking greatest Superman film we'll ever fucking get. So I think that's more hopeful than not, in my personal opinion. But that's just me.
Yeah, and then you know what? This is also, to me, that also speaks to the fact that this movie is a big priority for DC, for Warner Brothers Discovery. This is a big deal. They're putting it all out there. They're gonna leave it all on the table when all is said and done. They're not holding back. Like, as we remember from the Jurassic World, the Park movies, they're sparing no expense. Because
Right.
if you remember from back when they did the what was the Suicide Squad, the first movie that James Gunn collaborated with Warner Brothers in recent years. That was a movie that James Gunn famously would say all the time that was literally his biggest movie that he has ever worked on, like in terms of scale. if you don't remember, I mean, I think he says it like specifically in the behind the scenes documentary stuff, that is like the scale of this movie is like nothing I worked on before. This is the biggest movie. We've got the biggest sets, like this just, and he made a big deal out of it. And for a movie like that, of course that was a big deal because that was Warner Brothers, giving him essentially carte blanche to go do what he wants at a time when Disney had fired him, and he was the hottest free agent in Hollywood. Until Warner Brothers tied him down. And now, of course, he's there. He's with them. He is the co-CEO of the DC studios. And Superman, is the superhero. He is the oldest superhero, the biggest, the most recognizable. And speaking of Superman, of course, there's this. I think you sent me this. This is like a tweet or something.
I
From
mean, this could be
Entertainment
BS,
Weekly.
but this has hope for me because I do love the trunks. I want to see the trunks. I feel like it just like, I don't know, like whenever I view like the blue, just the blue, I feel like you need some separation there. Like the belt only does so much, but I feel like it just feels more complete with the trunks. And I feel like with Gunn, like he wants to bring in like the sillier aspects because he is a very silly director. So I feel like having the trunks in there, I feel like that works. And I like that. So I'm hoping for the trunks. I hope this is like not just a joke type of thing. I do genuinely hope that we are going to get trunks because I want to see trunks, damn it. And I'm not talking about the Dragon Ball Z character. I'm talking about the red trunks, damn it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I personally like what they did with Henry Cavill Superman with no trunks. I think like for live action modern day interpretation it worked, but because it's kind of hard to justify it really. But I think if they do bring it in, I'm sure they're gonna come up with a reason to because the biggest thing you can do is just some character just kind of asks him and he's like, it's part of the thing, because ultimately he's from an alien planet, Krypton. To us that looks like underwear on top of your clothing, but to them that this might be a normal thing. So it's like you could just simply say it's alien. Like, what are you gonna do about it? Like, so you're gonna tell us Kryptonians how to dress properly, like in our customs and culture?
That
Like,
sounds xenophobic.
Exactly. So I'm just saying, like, it's an alien culture with its own cultural norms. I mean, and it could be as simple as that in terms of just kind of talking about, how to justify the existence of that. I think it's for what we got in Man of Steel. I liked it, but I'm excited to see what the new suit's going to look like. We still haven't gotten an official image. I just want to see it. We just keep getting these kind of hints, which I love the hints, but please, where's the damn suit? And then also, like, I don't have it to show here, but today James Gunn had a story up on Instagram talking about like the release date of May 25th for the second season of My Adventures with Superman. So of course, all things Superman, we've got plenty to go around.
Yeah,
If you're
we're in
waiting
our
for
Superman
the
renaissance
movie,
right now.
yeah, I mean, you can watch the animated show this year and then wait for the Superman the live action movie to come out next year. You've got Creature
Watch
Commanders
Superman
on the
and
way.
Lois, the final season this
Superman and
year in
Lois,
fall,
that's coming
hopefully.
out. Yep. So there's a lot of Superman to go around, guys, and Green Lantern, of course. We started off there. There's a lot of Green Lantern to go around as well. So we're definitely going to be getting into that more. We talked about it last week. We're talking about it this week again. Maybe there'll be more news. Maybe we get to see some casting news. I mean, we have already done our fan casting. You can go back into the DCU Daily playlist on the channel and check out who John picked for all the Green Lantern fan castings. I think we made some good picks there, and there were some good ideas in terms of pairings and all the different characters we want to see brought into that show. And we'll see where things go. It clearly looks like James Gunn is firmly in the corner of the lanterns, and we'll get to see more of that. So go out there, watch something DC related as always, then come back and talk to us about it. We love hearing from you. Hunter Iggy, great question, by the way. Keep sending those in. We would love to answer them as they come in. So right now, let's pivot over, and we're going to finish off today's show by talking about The Fall Guy. The Fall Guy is a movie that let's just say we've all been looking forward to. And Angelina, you mentioned it to me like a few weeks ago. You were like, I can't wait for this movie. And I was like, well, me neither. Like, I want to see this movie. I first saw that this was going to come out, and there was a teaser trailer like months ago, and it was right at the time when you still all the big Barbenheimer rage was still going on, and of course, the Oscar season, we got more and more of that. So now you've got two of the veterans from the Barbenheimer phenomena, like starring in the same film, and they recently crossed paths on SNL. That was fun. But yeah, Angelina, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the Fall Guy? Is this something you're looking forward to? Especially coming off
I
of Challengers, it's a very different kind of movie compared to that.
I mean, I love Ryan Gosling. I always have. Big fan, 10 out of 10. I mean, I don't know what woman is not a big fan of Ryan Gosling. But any movie he comes out with, I always generally see he's a great actor. He's proven that over and over and over again. I also have a soft spot for him because he came from a musical theater background, and I think a lot of people forget that about Ryan Gosling, but he actually was in the Newsies. Like that was his breakout movie and breakout musical years ago. He's a brilliant tap dancer. He stole everybody's heart in The Notebook. And basically, anytime he comes out with a movie, I have to see it. But Emily Blunt is also kind of an incredible triple threat in the same way.
Kind of.
We all found her in me rolling my eyes. We all fell in love with her in The Devil Wears Prada, which just celebrated its 20th anniversary? There's no way.
Yeah.
It was its 10th anniversary?
Yeah.
No, 20th.
No, it's 20th.
It was 2004.
Holy cow. Yeah, so that just celebrated its 20th anniversary, but then obviously she has a musical background. She's incredible. I think she and her husband are like impeccable. So I'm excited to see them in a movie together. She always steals the show. I always have to see her movie. So having two actors in the same movie where I'm like, I literally always have to go see any movie that they're in together. We're looking at one of the best movies of the year, you guys.
Yeah,
it could be.
I'm super stoked. Like I've joked, like when I saw this, I'm like, okay, I gotta watch this. Like David Leitch, I think is like hit and miss, but for the most part, hit. Like I love Deadpool 2. Bullet Train had its problems, but for the most part was pretty good. And he was with Chad Stahelski. He was, John Wick. But now Chad Stahelski's sticking with John Wick. He's just doing fun blockbusters, and you know what? More power to him. And I've also joked that that this is the second installment of the Ryan Gosling realizing his true potential cinematic universe, with the first installment being Barbie. So he's like, I'm just a guy. I'm just a stunt guy. He's like, no, you're more than that, Ryan Gosling. You're more than that. And I hopefully he discovers his true potential throughout the entire film. And I'm really here for that. Like I like Aaron Taylor Johnson. I like I think that was Winston Duke. He's great, and I like it. This is just like, I feel like this is just gonna be like the perfect fun summer blockbuster. And look how dapper that man looks, by the way. Fucking beautiful right there.
That dude, I mean, you know what? Like I thought he would have made the perfect new Black Panther. Like
he should have been. M'Baku should have been fucking Black Panther. I'm still salty. Like I'm sure Shuri will be fine, but like he should have fucking been Black Panther. He would have been perfect. He's just like stature, acting ability, awesome. M'Baku should have fucking been the new Black Panther.
I'm wondering why they didn't do that. Like I feel like he was maybe it was just too easy of an answer.
Maybe too easy. Maybe they want more female heroes, which is fine. That's fair.
Yeah, I agree with you all, because wasn't he originally fighting for
in the first movie?
In the first movie, I'm like, wouldn't it make sense that he's the new Black Panther?
But I mean,
there's a comic book precedence for what they did, But I still think like this would have been really
both.
Good fit.
I think he was Black Panther a little bit. I know Shuri was Black Panther in the comics for a little bit too. So that's, again, as you said, comic book precedent. Both of them do. But I feel like she'll be fine with what they have planned for her. Letitia Wright, she's a great actress. So I'm just saying, I'm a little salty, but that's okay. But with Fall Guy, I'm super stoked. Like this looks like a ton of fun. Ryan Gosling looks great. It looks like, just even in the teaser trailers alone, it looks like their chemistry is going to be impeccable. Like I'm super stoked. I can't wait for this, and hopefully it's best movie of the year. That's what I say.
I mean, it's certainly got the hype behind it. They've been on the promotional circuit, like, on all the late night shows. They were on SNL, like, they're
Mhm.
promoting the heck out of this movie. The trailers look fantastic. It's also one
There
of
are
those things
billboards
where
all over LA,
all
like
over.
truly all over. The marketing is
Yeah.
exponential for this movie.
And the Rotten Tomato score is pretty high, like right off the bat. You see 90% right now at 77 reviews. That's a significant number, and it's doing really well. I also recently saw that I think they're making a point of highlighting the work that all the stuntmen do in Hollywood
Right.
and have done
Yeah.
for years. They make some of those impossible moments come to life for us that I don't think they get given enough credit. They don't
No.
really have like a category for Oscars or anything like that, but
I think they
they
will
do a lot of
soon,
work.
though. I think stunt choreographer
It's
is gonna
been
get a
yeah.
category soon.
Like, it's been in the works for years. I just don't know if they're ever, I mean, hopefully, because I think that certainly nowadays, more so than ever, that's a category you could fill up every year with very, very good, options and
Mhm.
at least five. I mean, how hard would it be to just five of the best stunt, choreographers of the
Yeah.
year? You
I
could do
know
that easily.
casting
So,
director is definitely gonna be implemented next year,
yeah,
or 2 years from now. But I
yeah,
think stunt choreographer might be they did tease it at the Oscars this
it,
past,
it, yeah, yeah,
year, so
yeah,
maybe they'll maybe they'll give us something, I don't know, but I
yeah,
think it's in
and
the works, but it might not be, I don't know.
I mean, and also recently I saw a commercial. It looks like they have been promoting like a new documentary about stunt choreographers and
Mhm.
stuntmen, just kind of not just promote the movie, but also to kind of raise awareness again for everything the stuntmen go through. Because if it weren't for them, we wouldn't have some of the most iconic sequences in all of our movie memories. Whether it's the sequence in all those Arnold Schwarzenegger or action movies from the 90s that people grew up on, all the
Yeah, I
superhero
mean,
movies we love now, even
legends.
even something like Barbie, like like where you wouldn't think that there's stuntmen involved in that movie because there's not a ton of action, but there are. Like, and certainly in Fall Guy, I'm sure there's gonna be some meta jokes and references and comedic
Oh,
moments
yeah. I
built
mean, I'm
around
sure there's
the
gonna be
film.
references to the TV show because it's
Yeah,
technically a TV show adaptation. So they
yeah,
already
it
do
is. Yeah.
have Lee Majors cameoing,
Hmm.
so that's good.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that's yeah, I can't tell you like once I saw the trailer, I can't tell you how excited I am. Like I'm
yeah.
so like and then we're gonna get Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes like soon after. Like
Oh
that's
yeah,
gonna be
literally the
fucking
next
great.
week, right? Yeah,
Oh,
that's next
It's
week.
coming. That's coming next. That
Oh,
so
maybe
after
yeah, so
the
it's
Fall
Fall Guy,
Guy.
and then I think technically May 10th is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes because
yeah.
actually one of my really good friends, she is she's a part of like helping make the soundtrack for the movie. So
Nice.
she
And
invited me
then
to like the premiere.
um
Hey,
a
well,
couple
tell us
weeks
how
after
it
that we
goes.
have the
Yeah.
Furiosa movie.
I'm really excited for
It's been
that.
May
heavy,
is gonna
man.
be
It's
stoked.
Yeah.
Like it
gonna
is
be
filled
packed.
to the brim with stuff. Like
I mean, you
I'm
got
excited,
If
man.
that speaking of Emily Blunt, of
Hmm.
course, you got If coming out directed by Jim, Asian
Jim.
Jim or regular Jim, whichever Jim you
Jim.
prefer.
Randall Park.
Uh,
Yeah.
yes,
The
Randall
real
Park,
John Krasinski.
the real John Krasinski. Yeah, I can't wait for the month of May, guys. Like it's been a great year already for movies. You've had a lot
It's
of iconic
gonna be
moments,
Hmm.
May.
but it's only going to go up from here. And May is tomorrow. We're doing this on the last day of April. Summer is here. The summer movie season is here, and we are so excited that you are joining us to be a part of it. We'll be back again, next week reviewing The Fall Guy, and then we'll be reviewing, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and then from there on, Furiosa and If, and so many more movies to come. Deadpool and Wolverine. There's lots and lots of new movies. You've got Joker, Folie à Deux coming out in the fall. So it's a summer full of movies,
Yeah,
and we'll
literally
see you
left and
back
right.
here. Yeah. Left and right. There's gonna be a couple of
My
weekends where
God.
there's two big movies coming out. We might be doing two movie reviews a week for a while.
Okay.
So
We're ready for
yeah,
it.
we'll get into that. But guys, thanks again for joining me. Of course, as always, it's been a pleasure, Angelina and John. We'll be back here in a few days. Until then, guys, go out there, watch something fun in a movie theater, or if you're watching on Netflix at home, or another streaming service, come back to us, talk to us about it. We'd love to hear from you as always, and we'll see you on the next episode of Oh So Curious.